Hello, and welcome to the 18th Sunday in Ordinary Time. You know, we have an expression in the South, hold my beer, and watch this. Now, you get to use this expression when somebody's told you that you can't do something, that something is impossible. Somebody will say, you can't climb that tree way out on that limb, and tie a rope to it so we can swing off over the edge of the cliff and drop down into the water below, and you'll say, hold my beer, and watch this. Or they'll say, you can't jump your car across the river like they do on TV, even if this is the skinny part of the river. And you'll say, hold my beer, and watch this. And they'll say, you can't deep fat fry a stick of butter. And you'll say, hold my beer, and watch this. Now, a lot of people have heard this expression used, and a lot of people have used this expression. In fact, it's been the final words of some unfortunate souls. But what a lot of people don't know, not even down there in the Bible Belt do they know this, that this expression is rooted in the Scriptures. This expression is rooted in the gospel passage today. Now hang on, let me back up. Now Jesus in our gospel today, he didn't want to be there. Jesus in our gospel today didn't want to fool with those people. He had just lost his cousin. He was trying to get away. He wanted to be alone. He was anguished. He was distressed. He'd had a death in the family. John the Baptist was his cousin. He had just died. He wanted to be alone to grieve, but still the people came. Those who are thirsty for the living water. Those who are hungry for the bread of life. Those of us who can never really pay for what Jesus gives us. Come without pain and without cost, God says. And so we do. We come seeking Jesus in his distress because the hand of the Lord feeds us. The Lord answers all our needs. And so the people came. And when Jesus saw the vast crowds, his heart was moved with pity for them. His love got the better of him. His distress, his anguish, his family tragedy couldn't keep him from reaching out in love to his people. As the Apostle Paul says in our second reading, nothing can separate us from the love of God. Nothing on our end, and certainly nothing on his end. And we know that. We know that in our hearts. We know that nothing can keep us from God. We know that nothing can separate our sisters and brothers from God. We know that nothing can prevent God from having pity on his children and healing them, caring for them, just as Jesus did in our gospel today. We know that. But like the apostles, once we get involved in God's kingdom, we start wanting to worry about the details, the nuts and bolts, the how. How is Jesus going to help these people? How is this going to work? Sometimes we think the way to help is to send people away. We can't help everyone. Some of them need to help themselves. The apostle said in the gospel, let them go to the villages to buy food for themselves. We can't take care of all these people. The problem's too big. There's too many of them. All we have are these 5 loaves, these 2 fish. If he'd had a beer, I believe Jesus would have said, hold my beer, give me them fish, and watch this. You see, friends, Jesus can do the impossible. Now, we feel like we're living in impossible times right now. We feel like there's a lot of impossibility going on around us. We can't survive another lockdown as a church. We can't make it without public church services, not spiritually or financially. If we can't pass the basket, we can't continue. But Jesus says, bring me your problems. Let me heal you. Let me do the impossible. Well, we definitely can't continue our charitable outreach programs. I mean, we might be able to keep the lights on, but we can't keep our soup kitchens open. We can't keep our clothes drives going. We can't take care of all these people who come to us thirsty, who come with no money, who come without paying and without cost. But God says, come to the water, drink, eat. Let me heal you. Now, right now, many of us need healing. Many of us are distressed. Many of us are in anguish. Many of us feel like we're in peril. Many of us struggle with how is God going to bring us through this current crisis we're in? We're in the middle of a plague, a pandemic. There's economic collapse. There's protests in the streets. There's murder hornets, hurricanes, aliens. It's impossible that we'll make it out of 2020, we think, we say. Is it impossible? Like feeding 5,000 people with 5 loaves, 2 fish? You see, nothing is impossible for God. Not even all this. So what are we to do? Well, in our bulletin last week, Father Patano included an excerpt from the book Servant of God by Elizabeth Lesueur. And she asks, what can be done in the face of evil and indifference by someone as obscure as I? Well, we can't do anything on our own. We need God's help. We need God's goodness. We need God's love. Mrs. Lesueur wrote, I believe that in the good there is a great expansive force. I believe that no humble unknown act or thought seen by God alone is lost, and that all, in fact, contribute to the good of others. I believe that when we do good, we know not how much good we do. And what she's saying is that one good thing grows. It has an expansive force. You do one good thing for one person, and that affects their life in a good way, and so they do something good for somebody else, which affects their life in a good way, and they do something good, and you see how it goes on and on and on. We can't know how far the one simple good act that we might do can go. Miss Lesueur continues, we have to do all the good that we can each day and each hour, and ask God to fill us with an intense charity which is God's love, the love that transforms us and our lives and becomes our love of all creatures, our powerful and vital love of souls, our love of all who suffer and all who grieve. Such love, Miss Lesueur says, can save the world. But that's impossible, we say. Each of us doing all the good that we can do each hour, that won't solve a global pandemic. That won't solve an economic collapse. That won't solve racial injustice or any of the rest of it, we think. Love can't stop political intrigue and foreign interference, can't stop natural disasters or man-made disasters. Love can't save the world. The world is too far gone. It is impossible, we say. It is impossible that our love and that our doing good can solve these problems that we're faced with. Our love and our goodness, they're too small. They're like 5 loaves, a couple of fish. To which I believe Jesus is saying to each of us today through this gospel, hold my beer and watch this. You see, we don't have to understand how Jesus is going to take 5 loaves and 2 fish and feed 5,000 people. We don't have to understand how Jesus is going to take our good that we do in our lives and our love in our hearts and change the world. All we have to do is the good that we can each day, each hour of each day. All we have to do is let the expansive force of good spread and contribute to the good of others. All we have to do is let God fill our hearts with love for every creature, for every soul, for all who suffer and all who grieve, for all who are thirsty and hungry, and all who have no money. All we have to do is act in goodness, act in charity, bring our 5 loaves and our 2 fish. Hold Jesus' beer and watch him do the impossible. Thanks.